Danganronpa.
Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc is one of my favorite games of all time. Half the time I question why this is, but honestly, its writing, characters, and gameplay combined to make it one of my favorite gaming experiences. And please, keep in mind I'm not one to enjoy visual novels. I dropped Doki Doki Literature Club an hour into it and never came back. So for this game to invest me from start to finish is a feat and a half. I could talk about this in a normal sense like any normal reviewer, but this is my channel, where normal conventions come to die. Rather, I'd like to praise one of its biggest successes that's actually somewhat rare in many Japanese games. It's the perfect bridge for fans of anime and gaming to come together. Strap yourselves in, there's a lot to get through. Visual novels have inherent strengths that make their dual appeal work at a satisfactory level. The first strength comes from the inherent limited budget that they have. Most of these games have a lot of PNGs that move and change expressions. While this limitation might seem like a criticism, it ultimately helps switch the player's focus. You see, many of the reasons people are into anime isn't for that fluid, continual, crisp animation. It's for the stories they tell and the characters they develop. So yeah, that focus shift is key, but how about those anime fans? The way to experience this plot with different characters and feel like you're a part of it is a magical feeling I don't think many weebs would want to pass up. Okay, so let's start up the game and wow, an anime opening that doesn't sound like the most generic positive approach, rather serving a great example for setting the tone of Danganronpa.
And it doesn't waste your time with cheesy lyrics you don't even understand.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Weeb Detector!
Dyslexics don't count.
Alright, new game and...
Oh, come on, really?
Joking aside, this game does take a while to get into its twists and turns that one may be expecting right off the bat, but it effectively sets the tone and intentions early on. But hey, let's forget about that for now and try to live our school life. The first half of each chapter is daily life, where the story setup starts. You can then talk to characters and check out new places that begin to unlock. First of all, you can move around freely in a visual novel and check out whatever you want to at any time! Shattering the idea of visual novels railroading you down a path with transitions and few decisions that a certain game made abundantly clear. You're able to check out whatever you want, even though the game usually gives you a checklist of certain things to inspect. But it does help tremendously with getting used to your new surroundings, which will be important later on. After you get used to your new locations, you then talk about your findings with friends to serve as one last reminder. Then you get some more of that sweet, sweet freedom, because it's on to free time. Free time is when you get to hang out with any of the characters except the villain, of course. The character in question that you control is none other than Makoto Naegi. He is a representation of a common anime trope to give viewers the feeling of wish fulfillment by making the protagonist generic. While you can understand the point, it's really boring to watch a show where it's some lame generic guy who's completely average. The thing is, in a video game, when you're able to make your own decisions, this trope works because it feels a lot less like you're watching some generic character do things, but rather you are the main character who acts.
What a novel idea.
Okay, so who are these characters to talk to? First, there's Sayaka Mizuno, Hatsune Miku's closest twin that apparently Makoto knows from school. How sweet.
Every time I hear an anime opening, I feel her presence.
Next, there's Kyoko Kirigiri, the detective who is mysterious to draw your attention to her. But other than that, she's pretty cool. Junko Amishima's neat, although a little rude. Toko Fukawa is quirky introvert until... Whoa, that's spoiler territory! Chihiro Fujisaki is the cutesy character that's coded her way into many's hearts. Aoi Asahina is best, and if you object, that's fine. It's okay to be wrong. Her best friend is Sakura Ogami, who's calm and cool but also screams half the time. Finally, there's a witch that will steal your money if you ever challenge her to a game of poker. Oh yeah, there's another group of people to care about. Leon Kawata is just whiny and an overall loser. Kiyotaka Ishimaru is great, strict, but also wholesome. Mondo Owada is everything but wholesome. He's mean, manly, and intimidating. Yasuhiro Hagakure is dumb boy who claims there's conspiracies about everything.
Even hamburgers.
It means the burger wasn't 100% beef!
Hifumi Yamada is a
Degenerate.
Finally, Byakuya. the elite of elites. Many of these characters represent a certain trope, but they have a lot of opportunity to be expanded upon in the free times. Best of all, you get to talk to whoever you want. It's your choice. You're given a surface level idea of who that character would be, and then it's up to you if you want to know more about them. You only have a limited time to do so before other things are going to happen, and all your friends might die. Being able to understand characters beyond the typical notions feels great, as it's more of an insight to who they can really be. Free time is the essence of weeb comfort food and newcomer exploration. Your tastes and interests are able to be fulfilled or discovered depending on the viewpoint. Here's the reason for these tropes not usually being a major turnoff: subtlety. Because it is a visual novel with very few animated cutscenes, there really is no fan service to try to get that appeal, and the character designs are much more reserved to serve as a better entry level. It's why this game specifically fares better in coexistence, because from what I've seen, the character designs and personalities begin to become a little more off-putting in the later games. God, these characters that I've spent time with were so amazing and fun to be with.
Ahem. School announcement, school announcement. All students, please gather in the gym immediately.
Yes, it's finally time to talk about the most iconic character in the series, Monokuma. He's the reason all these murders take place. All he needs is a motive. Everyone begins to tense up, as murder seems like it's just around the corner, because it usually is. His nature is so off-putting, because there's very little remorse of sight that he gives. Rather joyful to see everyone fall apart, happy to see everyone break down, lose faith in themselves and their classmates. Everyone's on edge, trying to comfort themselves into feeling safe, but that ultimately proves worthless when someone ends up dying. Even though the blood is censored, that rarely ever means anything from the shock and tragedy that's brought from any murder. They'll never be there as a character ever again. Your next task is to gather evidence. Why is this so important? Because in a sense, you're basically stocking up ammunition. Every piece of evidence becomes a truth bullet which will be used to figure out what happened. Evidence is your only way of finding the murder. You're given bits and pieces, but not the full picture. That comes in the... This is when Danganronpa becomes more than just a visual novel with a dark presence. Everything is amped up: the camera work, the character performances, the music, and the pace. Are these things just fleeting bits of fun surrounded by a visual novel? No. These trials usually on average last for 90 minutes. They're a culmination of everything that has taken place. Before they start, you're allowed to equip the skills you got from your interactions with other characters. All of your actions meant something. Daily life wasn't just comfort food, it was preparing you for this, with the only bonds you have left. It's up to you to figure out who the killer was by using your head and understanding from all that has happened throughout the chapter. The main mechanic is a non-stop debate, where you're given a handful of truth bullets to shoot through false claims and move forward. It starts out simple, but more mechanics get introduced with each new trial all the way to the final trial. It's a gameplay evolution, not a narrative one. The familiarity of shooting as a mechanic absolutely helps with the accessibility. There are other minigames put in. While they're not as fun as non-stop debates, they do overall help with building satisfaction to find out who the murderer is. The gameplay assists in the overall build-up found in the trials from everything else. Remember when I said that an inherent strength of visual novels was the literary focus? Well, this is where it all pays off. The gameplay revolves around your understanding, which fills in the puzzle-like satisfaction that many video games have and many gamers crave. The question is, how does this fit with getting anime fans into it? Well, because the stories and characters are a main focus in most shows, analysis and theories are big parts of the community. This is where they can step in and make their own analysis to succeed, while also having fun with the gameplay. Class trials fill up a satisfaction on a gameplay and literary side, combining both to become the main highlight of the series. However, all of this build-up from beginning to end leads to Danganronpa making a name for its tone, story, and writing. We're given backstory and motive for the killer's and victim's actions. The mood is set, and the worst parts of these characters' lives or their dreams only to be crushed are shown to the forefront. Then, we get into the punishments, the only typical form of cutscenes. They are executions of the killer, reflecting on who they are, as that becomes the last we ever see of them. This buildup of satisfaction was rewarded with the end result of progression, but what is shown sometimes makes you wish that you never got there in the first place. Monokuma twists the buildup into something that shows what this game is all about. You can try to move forward from the past, but the game will chime in with a wonderful reminder. Danganronpa sets itself apart from other visual novels. It uses tropes and familiar escalation to tell its own story, twisting on familiarity in its purest form. It's dark, but lighthearted, satisfying, but crushing. It's a balancing act of different emotions and blends them together to become an overall masterclass in visual novel design. It moves forward from the inspected nature of visual novels with great gameplay mechanics that still keep its core intact. It challenges one's notions of how media plays out, with unexpected twists and turns. But even with the dark tone, Danganronpa keeps a positive outlook that transform utter losses into some of the most victorious moments I've ever felt by the end. When playing through Trigger Happy Havoc, I began to reflect on what got me into anime in the first place. It all started right before freshman year of high school. I was told by one of my friends to watch Attack on Titan, and my innocent mind was blown away by the insanity and dark tone the series had, with cool action to boot. What I notice now is that this is an example of what many refer to as a gateway anime. While it was dark and cool and mainstream, it ultimately shied away from other components that make up what anime is. This is an inherent flaw with what many of them do. They shy away time and time again from the more questionable parts that many point their finger at. Trigger Happy decides to introduce a handful of these elements, but with respect, subtlety, and a creative justification. The nature of shonen-type escalation escalates to murderous insanity to leave you speechless. The characters express tropes and pieces lightly, for you to pick and choose what you want to know more about, and its gameplay rewards those with the chance to analyze literary hints who have been surrounded by that as a prominent part of their community. So no, this isn't a gateway catered to one demographic. It's a bridge, allowing two communities to coexist, and for my money, it's a practically flawless bridge. To add to my main point, I'd like to explain why many believe visual novels are for the biggest of weebs. What many visual novels end up doing is to act as a sort of an advanced and slightly interactive manga, hence the daily life sections. Because manga isn't nearly as popular as anime, the similarities of the two niche parts blend together, making the majority of the Western audience disinterested. What makes Danganronpa special is that its gameplay, rise in pace, and the style of the deadly life portions fill in for what has made its way into the mainstream. This is why the anime adaptation isn't really that good, because it mainly goes through the deadly life portions so rapidly to the point where nothing really sinks in, and the pace is way too fast. Play the game instead. Both portions serve their purpose and are extremely well executed. Not to mention, the free range of movement shows a better realized world, which is usually more present in anime, with color and having to animate your characters through said world. The full voice acting, camera work, punishment cutscenes, and style reflects this almost flawlessly. To top it all off, you can mostly go at your own pace no matter what, due to different difficulty settings, time to think, and the ability to swiftly move through dialogue. While yes, this game is way longer than most anime usually go for nowadays, the experience with all these masterful elements coming together made this game worth it, and it was something that I always came back for because I wanted to see what would happen next. I didn't expect this game to become one of my favorites, but it absolutely did. My last bit of proof for this video comes from my own personal experience. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc filled in the main two columns of my free time. The great writing, characters, and gameplay blended together to fill in both columns. This game and series as a whole isn't for everyone, but if you're wondering how to get into anime and manga successfully, this is one of the best solutions. This is the final introduction to my three main series on this channel, and if you're wondering where my intentions are with all of this, all I can say is to investigate closely, because you might find some interesting clues. Hope you stick around.